Undercover CEO works as a janitor. He sees a single mom being humiliated and takes action. The single mother stood frozen in the middle of the marble lobby, clutching a small paper bag of groceries while tears filled her eyes. Her manager pointed at her in front of dozens of employees and accused her of stealing company food. What no one knew was that the quiet janitor standing only a few feet away was not a janitor at all. He was the billionaire CEO who owned the entire company, and what he witnessed that morning would expose a cruelty he never knew existed inside his own walls. For 3 months, Daniel Carter had worked undercover as a janitor in his own corporation. He had changed his expensive suits for a faded uniform, hidden his identity, and spent his days cleaning offices and hallways. He wanted to discover how ordinary employees were treated when executives were not watching. Most people ignored him, some looked through him, and a few treated him as if his work made him invisible. But Daniel didn't mind. He was learning something money could never teach him. Then he met Emily. Emily was a single mother who worked in the accounting department. She arrived every morning before sunrise and left long after most employees had gone home. Her clothes were simple, her shoes were worn, and she often carried a small photograph of her young daughter inside her wallet. Daniel noticed that she never complained, even when she was exhausted. One evening, he saw her quietly counting coins near the vending machine because she didn't have enough money for dinner. Instead of feeling sorry for herself, she simply smiled, packed away her coins, and continued working. The trouble began on a rainy Monday morning. Emily's daughter had been sick, and Emily had spent most of the night at the hospital. She arrived late, carrying a small grocery bag that contained medicine and food for her child. Before she could reach her desk, her department manager stopped her in the lobby. He had discovered that several expensive meals from the executive refrigerator were missing and immediately blamed Emily because she had once been seen near the kitchen. He didn't ask questions. He didn't investigate. He simply humiliated her in front of everyone. Emily tried to explain that she had never touched the food, but the manager accused her of lying. He demanded that she open her bag. With shaking hands, Emily showed him the medicine and a few inexpensive groceries she had bought for her daughter. The manager sneered that people like her always had excuses. The words crushed her more than the accusation itself. Daniel stood nearby holding a mop, but inside, his anger was burning. He had watched employees walk past Emily without helping. He had seen people stare at her tears and then look away. What hurt him most was realizing that this wasn't just about one cruel manager. It was about a culture that had allowed someone vulnerable to be treated as worthless. Daniel stepped forward and calmly asked the manager to check the security cameras before firing anyone. The manager laughed at him, reminding him that he was only a janitor. But Daniel didn't move. He told him that dignity belonged to everyone, regardless of their position. At that moment, Daniel's assistant entered the lobby. He looked around nervously, then saw Daniel standing in the janitor's uniform. His face went pale. He knew the truth. Daniel Carter wasn't a janitor. He was the CEO. The entire lobby went silent. The manager's confidence disappeared instantly. Daniel ordered security to bring up the footage. Within minutes, the cameras revealed that another employee had been taking the meals and blaming Emily to cover his tracks. The manager had never checked the evidence because he had already decided that the poorest employee must be guilty. Daniel didn't fire Emily. Instead, he apologized to her publicly and offered her paid leave so she could care for her daughter. He also fired the manager for humiliating an employee without evidence and created a new company policy requiring every complaint to be investigated fairly, regardless of an employee's position. But Daniel's biggest surprise came afterward. He visited Emily's home and learned that her daughter needed expensive medical treatment. Emily had been working extra hours because she was terrified of losing the little stability she had left. Daniel quietly arranged a company-supported medical fund, not as charity, but as part of a new employee assistance program available to anyone facing a family emergency. Months later, Emily returned to work. She was no longer afraid to walk through the lobby. She had been promoted to a senior accounting position because Daniel had discovered that her work had been among the best in the company all along. And Daniel never forgot what being a janitor had taught him. He had entered the building believing he was going undercover to find problems. Instead, he discovered something deeper. Sometimes the people carrying the heaviest burdens are the same people who need the most dignity, not pity. If this story touched your heart, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to Echoes of Kindness if you believe in kindness, second chances, and treating every person with respect, no matter their job or social status. Months later, Emily's daughter returned to the company with her mother. She handed Daniel a small handmade card that simply said, "Thank you for helping my mommy." Daniel kept that card on his desk. Because in a company worth billions, the most valuable thing he had ever received was not money, success, or power. It was the reminder that one act of kindness can change someone's entire life. If this story touched your heart, please support the video with a like, share it with someone who believes in kindness, and subscribe to Echoes of Kindness. Your support helps these stories reach people who may need their own reminder that compassion still matters. And before you leave, comment, "Kindness changes everything," if you believe no one should ever be humiliated.